Hi, welcome to the Health Changers. All of us here are passionate about helping people to change their health destiny. And let me introduce our amazing panel. We have Dr. Frank Sabatino. He is the health director at Balance for Life retreat program in Deerfield Beach, Florida. And he recently completed a book called WEIGHTLESS, Compassionate Weight Loss for Life. And then we have Jayney, the lovely Jayney Goddard, who is the president of the Complementary Medical Association, and she's one of the leading experts in anti-aging in integrative medical fields. And she's written quite a few books, so you'll have to check those out. And then we have Gareth, who is a former soccer star, and now he helps people to reduce or eliminate their high blood pressure medication with his no meds method. And I am Jeanne Schumacher. I'm founder of Simply Plant-Based, and I've got a lot of programs to help people to transition to a plant-based lifestyle. And we're just getting ready to launch the Pregnancy Advantage on June 1st. So welcome everybody to the Health Changers. And today we are going to start with Jayney. Her topic is going to be surprising natural anti-aging tactics that work.
Well, hello everybody. A warm welcome to the show. Thank you very much for the introduction, Jeanne. And it's wonderful to be with my lovely colleagues here. So I wanted to start today with touching on something that's a little bit different, really. One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that mindset has a huge part to play in our aging process. Now, as you'll appreciate, of course, we don't just age in one fell swoop. So a lot of people think, well, you age in a sort of a chronological fashion, step by step by step. But the truth of the matter is that it's actually slightly different to that. So our skin, for example, might be slightly older or slightly younger than perhaps our cognitive facilities. Our sense of balance might be slightly better performing or slightly worse performing, which is an indicator of biological age, than perhaps our body fat to muscle ratio. So there are all sorts of different ways in which the body ages, not just a sort of, a sort of a line that just goes from top to bottom and, we become more decrepit as we age. So what can we do about that? One of the things that a lot of people don't realize is that mindset, as I said, plays a hugely important role in the rate at which we age. Now, just to clarify, our chronological age, which is the age we are in years, or the number of times we've been around the sun, so our chronological age is one age. That's simply a number. It doesn't really mean very much in terms of how well we perform from an anti-aging or pro-aging perspective. But the more important number is our biological age. That is the age that we are from the perspective of how our bodies measure up from a physical perspective and a mental perspective, a cognitive perspective. So those are the numbers that we actually need to pay attention to. So one of the things that people always find very surprising is that we can actually add many more healthy years to our biological age by doing certain things that a lot of people don't realize have any relevance, but they truly do. So for example, one of the things I wanted to touch on today was the fact that you can add up to 9 healthy years to your lifespan by socializing. Now, this is particularly relevant at this time when most of the world is in lockdown at the moment. Our lockdown, I think, is a little bit more draconian here in the UK than it is for you guys in the States. I don't know how things are in Norway, Gareth, but I'm sure you can tell us about that. But here it's pretty draconian at the moment. So we're not allowed to go out. We're certainly not allowed to socialize, although things are slightly easing off a little bit at the moment. So what do we do about that? Well, what is this element of socialization? It's not really just a case of actually being able to get together physically. In the research, what's actually been shown is when you get together and you work together towards a common goal, that's the thing that seems to make the big difference. Now, we do know from the research that volunteering has a massive effect on the rate at which we age and actually serves to rewind our biological clocks, actually making us physically, emotionally, mentally younger. So volunteering, from when it's coming from a perspective of generosity and an eleemosynary approach, that is the key to actually rewinding our body clocks. Well, of course, obviously, we have to do all of the other things, like we have to follow a plant-based, whole food diet, we have to exercise, we have to get appropriate sleep, we have to do all of the other good things that we know we should do, from stress response management and so on and so forth. But it's this element of working towards a common goal. Now, we can do that in lockdown conditions. So the fact is that I know a lot of people are really struggling with mental health issues at the moment. It is a huge part of this lockdown picture and something that really desperately needs to be addressed. But what we do see is that the COVID-19 situation has really pushed human beings in a very different direction. I myself, when I'm not doing complementary medicine or integrative medicine things and looking after clients and writing and so on, I'm a dancer. I do a lot of dance of various different types, and it's where I come from. So for me, it's something that my body relates to and makes me very, very happy. So I've had this incredible situation whereby I've been doing online courses and classes with dance teachers, brilliant famous dancers from all over the world. For example, right now, the English National Ballet Company are doing company classes with the leader of the English National Ballet every day at 11 a.m. But what they've done is generously sort of churned it out to doing seated ballet classes. So anybody, for example, who might be wheelchair bound is able to actually, involve themselves in doing ballet classes. So what I'm saying is that, if you can find a way of working together towards a common goal. For example, here in the UK, we've got the Great British Lockdown Choir, which is led by a choir master who's had lots and lots of different, very entertaining TV programs. And so at 5 o'clock, you go online and everybody gets the song sheet, and everybody joins in this UK-wide choir. So all of these amazing things are happening where we can join together, we can socialize, even though we're not physically allowed to get together. So as I say, take advantage of all of those, because you could well be adding up to 9 healthy years to your biological age, which is quite remarkable, actually. So that's my little piece for the day.
Jayney, in lockdown or quarantine, whatever you want to call it, what acts of kindness or things like can we volunteer to do while we're in this?
Well, interestingly enough, actually, I don't know whether you've heard of Captain Tom Moore, who's now been made up to Honorary Colonel Tom Moore. He's an elderly gentleman. He's just turned 100, and he thought it would be fun to try and raise £1,000 by walking 100 lengths of his garden. And anyway, what happened was that people caught on to this. He ended up raising £40 million. And donations were flooding in from all over the world. And he alone has been absolutely instrumental in raising the morale of so many people. So, so that's just one thing. The fact is that people felt good by donating to his cause. And his cause was to go to NHS charities and other charities. In fact, actually, it's become a worldwide phenomenon, and he's now been knighted. So he's now Sir Tom Moore, and he had a Spitfire and Hurricane fly past and on his 100th birthday. And it's been an absolutely worldwide phenomenon. These little acts that start off as something small can turn into something massive, and lots of people are following suit. So lots of young soldier boys have been doing sponsored burpees. I don't know if you know what burpees are, but they're a oh dear. Gareth, you're nodding. You know what burpees are. Gareth, have I got this right? I think what you do is you hunker down, you do sort of like in a press-up position, you shoot your legs out behind you, back in again, and then you jump up really high, and then you go back down, shoot your legs back out, and then jump up really high. It's really difficult to explain. Is that a burpee, Gareth? I'm sure you know, because I think you'll have done it. Oh, well, I've got it right. Okay, thank you. So lots of people are doing sponsored things. So those are intrinsic acts of kindness. But one of the other things that Captain Tom Moore has been talking about, his absolute passion is to address loneliness. So we've got again, in the UK, but I'm sure you have it all over the world, because I know we've got viewers from all over the world. We've got initiatives where you can actually befriend elderly people who are self-isolating. But let's not just do this during COVID. Let's keep this befriending of lonely people going on post-COVID, because loneliness is absolutely diabolical. It is so deleterious to health in every respect. So these are the little things that we can do. It takes no effort. Just picking up the phone and speaking to an elderly person, popping around to see them if you possibly can. Those are the things that we need to be doing to keep society going now, but even more important as we come out of this situation that we're in at the moment.
Talked about briefly about the measurements for aging, and I know you've got some sections on your website where you can anyone can go on there and actually test themselves. Can you say a little bit about that, please?
Thank you, Gareth. Yes, that's a really lovely question. Thank you very, very much indeed. When I was writing my book, Rewind Your Body Clock, it became very apparent that people would be reading it, but not necessarily having any inkling of how to actually gauge their own biological age. So what I did was looked at all of the research out there and realized that what we needed to do was to create some sort of a biological age testing set of exercises that people could do. So I looked at the evidence base for all of the various aging tests and came up with several tests that people can do easily at home, no special equipment needed. But these tests are not things that I sort of made up out of my head. They have very, very good evidence supporting the fact that they do have a role to play in biological age measurement. Now, if you really wanted to get super fancy, you could go to a place that has machines that will really accurately measure your oxygen and CO2 output, fat to muscle ratio and things like that. But we can't do that at home. So I wanted really practical things that people could do. So I found this set of exercises. I've put the exercises, the description of them up on the website. Anybody can log in and actually do them. It's completely anonymous. And then the algorithm creates and works out your current biological age. So as I say, of course, that differs from your chronological age. Through the miracle of internet technology, every month you will receive an email reminding you to log in again and do the tests again. Because what we want to be able to show you is a progression towards an biological age reduction as you go along and make the changes to your diet, to your lifestyle and so on that I talk about in the book. As I say, it's completely anonymized. I don't know who's logged in. I can't see any of the data. None of my team can see the data. We wanted to do it that way so that people felt safe with sharing what could be quite intimate details of their well-being in a way. So that's why it's absolutely completely secure and anonymized. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Jayney. You're always incredible. I mean, amazing. So I'm going to jump in with talking about beans and greens, powerhouse foods. Beans, just in general per se, are super healthy. They're versatile. They're affordable. They're high in antioxidants, fiber, protein, B vitamins, iron, magnesium, potassium, copper, zinc. I mean, like the whole kitchen sink pretty much there. It's going to help with weight management, which is some of the things that we do at the Weight Loss Advantage. We teach you about what's called caloric density. And it's also, eating beans can regularly help you decrease the risk of diabetes, heart disease, and certain types of cancer. And there's so many different types of beans. I lived in Brazil, and black beans, oh my God, I fell in love with black beans there. They're so good. And another one is kidney beans. These are great in soups and chilies. And oh my gosh, pinto beans, another one that's good for chilies. Baked beans, oh, I love baked beans. They're such good picnic food. And refried beans, you just basically put them into the blender and turn them into a kind of like a paste, and you have refried beans without the oil. Cranberry beans, they're amazing in that they have a little stripe of, it looks like cranberries to a certain extent, but obviously they have nothing to do with cranberries. But they're fun to cook and make. Don't forget lentils. Oh my God, there's so many different varieties of lentils. They're just incredible. And those are suited to like salads. I make a lentil chili, just such good things. Chickpeas are another good one. You can put them, make hummus. Oh my God, I make so many different types of hummuses. You can put them into salads, add them to soups and curries. Oh, they're so good. But as anybody who's first starting to learn this lifestyle, you are going to see that there's going to be issues with gas and bloating without question. And the reason why is because beans contains these sugars that we have a hard time digesting. It's missing this enzyme that's required to break these sugars down. And so in the colon, the bacteria begins to ferment these sugars and we get gas. The winds do blow here in the Schumacher household, I'm not going to lie. So what are some of the ways that we can avoid the gas and the bloat? Well, first, start with some things that are simpler to digest, like mung beans, azuki beans, lentils, things like that. They are low in the complex sugars that aren't, broken down in the human digestive system. Another tip is to eat fruit or sugar foods, 2 to 3 hours away from a meal that has beans in it, so you're not mixing those sugars up. And try in the beginning just to eat one protein in the meal, because each protein requires a specific type and strength of digestive juices. So, if you just keep it to one, then you're not going to have as many issues. Try and stay away from potatoes and beans at the same time in the beginning, because they have a conflict with digestion. And there's tons of spices. Oh my gosh, like from ginger to turmeric, fennel. I mean, these things make it more digestible, like coriander, cumin, and they make it taste phenomenal. Oh my God. So another thing that you can do is to soak the beans before you use them, and then, soak them overnight. I put them, just put them on the stove, and I just put them into a big pot of water and let them soak overnight. And what this does is it helps break down the outer coating and releases the sugars. So you're not going to have as many digestive bloating problems. So soaking the beans overnight definitely helps them. Okay. So what are some of the benefits of beans? Oh my God. First of all, they're going to move you. And I mean that in a positive way. It's going to help things flow. Okay. They're going to satisfy you. They're going to satiate you. They're going to make you feel full. And that's because of the fiber that's in there. And oh my God, that's going to help your gut biome. And I know Dr. Sabatino has talked about that. We've talked about that in several videos. They're convenient. Oh my God, you can get them canned, frozen, dry. They're inexpensive. They're so nutrient rich. They're powerhouses of nutrients, including antioxidants and vitamins and minerals. They're easy to incorporate throughout, and then what are the benefits? Oh my God, they can help with heart disease. They contain an abundance of soluble fiber, which can lower your cholesterol and your triglycerides. They're low in fat. They're high in protein, much higher than like animal products are. They can help balance your blood sugar and help cut your cancer risk. I mean, gosh, what's not to love? Except greens. King of alkalization is dark leafy greens. Oh my God. They're going to help give your body folate. Folate is a deficiency, very, very common, and no surprise, because we just don't eat a lot of greens. They're essential for DNA and RNA synthesis, amino acid production, cell division, which is one of the things that we really promote in the Pregnancy Advantage that's coming online June 1st. And it's going to lead to this folate deficiency is going to lead to a lot of problems, digestive disorders, cardiovascular disease, birth defects, which we're trying to avoid in the Pregnancy Advantage. And it's crucial for epigenetics to this process of methylation. So let's talk about these greens. I mean, the benefits of these things is they're going to help your heart. Okay. They're going to help with the anti-aging process, like Jayney was talking about. But the biggest thing is these are going to help to feed your telomeres. We've got these chromosomes that make up the DNA. And on these chromosomes are like these little shoelaces, like on the end of your shoelace, you have that little plastic piece that keeps it from unraveling. Well, that's kind of what this is, the telomere. And it kind of protects our chromosomes. These telomeres help keep the main part of the chromosomes from shortening each time that the cell divides. So it helps you to keep your longevity. Anyway, these greens are going to help feed these telomeres. And it's also going to help fight diabetes. The glucose imbalances are going to be leading to diabetes, which can be prevented and regulated with greens. So they're going to provide a lot of minerals to help you. It's going to help enhance insulin secretion, and it's going to mimic insulin function. So it's just incredible ways. And it's going to help feed your gut. Oh my gosh. They can also help provide sun protection, at the cellular level through antioxidant and anti-inflammatory benefits of these carotenoids. They can also protect you against toxins and help to get them out. Chlorophyll has this neutralizing effects on so many toxins. It helps to trap it and then render it harmless, and then you get it out of your body. So you definitely want to be building up these dark leafy greens. And there's so many. I mean, there's arugula, there's beet leaves. When I buy beets and the leaves, I throw those into the blender and add them to my smoothie. There's dandelion greens, kale, mustard greens. Oh, they're spicy. Little parsley, some green and red lettuce varieties. There's romaine, there's Swiss chard. Oh, there's so many more. And, you can get them, you can grow them yourself. I actually have what's called a foodie tower, and it's a hydroponic system that I have in my living room. And it provides a nice water sound, but I grow greens, and I can just walk over and pick some and then go back to the kitchen. You can go to your local farmers markets. You can get them at the grocery store, frozen, fresh. I mean, either way. And there's such a diversity in the flavor. Oh my God, so great. So, and I just also want to put in a plug, and we're just talking about a food focus today. And somebody gave me a gift for the end of the year teaching. So I went and I said, oh, let me see if I can treat myself to another something. And I found that I thought I had every cookbook known to mankind. Apparently I don't. But I found this one. It's called the China Study Cookbook by Leanne Campbell. And amazing. I mean, first of all, her pictures are just absolutely exquisite. And let me show you what I am making today. These are samosas from her book. And I can't wait to make these and jump into this today. I love Indian samosas.
When you're talking about beans, which are one of the highest quality foods on the planet, and I always love when people are concerned about eating beans, worried about weight gain. In fact, the leanest people on the planet are bean eaters. But the bottom line is, starting with smaller amounts and chewing them more thoroughly does help. We talk about chewing things to almost a cream in your mouth, so you're slowing it down. About 80% of the gas in the gut is actually from swallowed air. And so the bottom line is, on top of the fermentation of the sugars in beans, you want to chew everything to a very creamy consistency, slow it down, and combining beans with greens, steamed greens and so on, actually promotes absorption, and it makes it a little bit better digestively. And cooking with onions and garlic will promote a lot of the absorption of zinc and other minerals from beans even more effectively. So as you mentioned, using those herbs and spices, again, slowing things down, chewing things to a consistency, and then allowing the body to kind of ease into the amount of beans. If you jump into eating huge volumes and your bowel's not used to it, it's going to be an issue, and there will be gas. And like my father used to say, a good ass will speak for itself. But the bottom line is, we want to make sure that we can minimize that, and you can do that by some of those practices. He was quite a wit. He was quite a philosopher, my dad.
Oh my God, that is great. That is awesome. I never heard that before. So thank you for sharing that.
And you'll never forget it again now, yeah.
Is there anybody or any condition where someone shouldn't eat beans?
Well, in my clinical experience, if you've got really irritable bowels, or you have ulcerative colitis or things of that kind of extreme nature, these foods can be a little bit hard on the system. But then blending them, putting them in soups, if you still want to incorporate these foods, you can still do it. You may have to make some adjustments to how you put it into the diet, but they still provide such incredible nutrient value, like Jeanne was saying, that I still like to get them in, but you may have to make a very slow introduction of those foods when you're dealing with certain conditions that may represent more inflammation or damage in the gut.
Conversely, from sort of a health perspective, one of the beans really are, and beans and greens, particularly are beneficial for, I've found, my type 2 patients, type 2 diabetes patients. It does, of course, beans do contain protein, but they also contain carbohydrate. And a lot of people with diabetes, type 1 and 2, and the other various types, are a little bit nervous about beans because they think, oh gosh, that's a lot of carbohydrate there. But it is such complex carbohydrate. And by adding the greens in, actually slows the rate at which, it reduces the impact of the complexity of the carbohydrate in beans actually reduces the glycemic impact upon the body. So I've noticed that an awful lot with my type 1 and 2 diabetic patients.
Yeah, just to reiterate that, I haven't seen anything like the combination of beans and greens for improving insulin resistance and lowering blood sugar in all diabetes. It's one of the best dietary approaches for treating and reversing the problem of diabetes, without question.
Thank you guys for jumping in on that, on my beans and greens, because you are right. That is amazing stuff. So let's jump into Gareth, and he is going to talk about today, why don't most people get going immediately after learning about the benefits of a whole food, plant-based, salt, oil, sugar-free diet?
Well, yes, especially when the results are proven, and even when you're not, academic scientists like myself, I'm not, but it's so easy to come to this conclusion, in my opinion, especially now. There wasn't so much 20, 30 years ago, but certainly nowadays, there's so much information out there. And if people just take a little bit of time to look and use common sense, I just think you can't come to any other conclusion. So I put a little acronym together because I heard this from people so much, so much. It's so much to do. It's so much of a change. So I put 6 little points of, what are some of the issues and why, how can you get over them? So let's start with a SAD diet. SAD, standard American diet, or standard British diet, or standard European diet. There's not a lot of difference with them for their end result, actually. It's an agenda thing, the products that are available out there. When I look back to my childhood, the products that children have access to these days, and adults, weren't even invented or certainly weren't available when I was a kid. So the diet has changed massively, and they're so good at marketing their products because that's their job. They're very good at their job, and they're not marketing products to make us healthy. That's not their goal. Their goal is to sell their products. And so we have to combat that. And the way I feel we can do that is by daily education. And this is so much easier than it was, as I say, before the internet. Now you can go and look. I mean, you 3 guys here have all got great websites. You've all got amazing information where it would take weeks really for a new person to go through and fully understand the stuff that if they were just doing maybe 20 minutes, half an hour a day. But that's what I would encourage, is just get into the habit of looking at solid websites and researching yourself, taking responsibility and for your own education. And remember, good health is worth working for. If you've looked after a relative who's been suffering with Alzheimer's, dementia, which I've had the unfortunate experience to do, which many people have, then you don't need convincing of that good health is worth working for. And it does take some work. So, opinion of others. Man, what if you got a toothache, you do not go to a plumber and ask him, please will you have a go at pulling my tooth out. You would go to someone who actually knows about it. And so I really warn people about the opinions of people will fight for their bad decisions because they want to justify what they're doing. It won't be on a basis of science. So go to the places where the science is proven and look at that. Nobody out there. Oh, let me just change that. Very, very few people out there are forced to eat the food that they eat and the drink that they drink. We choose to do that. So don't worry about the opinions of others. They're not going to be worried about your body when you get sick. Okay, let's move on. Movement. I put that down instead of exercise because, again, I've had the experience as soon as I say the word exercise, some people are so far away from that they think they need to be in the gym 7 days a week, and that is not the case. You don't need to be in the gym every day. You don't need to be in the gym at all. I can't remember the last time I went to an indoor gym. Unfortunately, I got an outdoor gym, which right at the moment has 3 foot of snow on it. So maybe in another month or 5 weeks, it'll be okay. You don't have to do that. What I would suggest is you find something you love. You absolutely love to do. Maybe it's playing with your grandkids or your children. I saw John McDougall once put one of his grandchildren on his back and go hiking up a mountain on with a rucksack of a baby on his back. How cool is that? You know, that is amazing exercise. That is enjoyable, because when we do enjoyable things, we will keep doing them, and consistency is key. And get started, I would say, as well. If you're not doing any exercise, it does need to be, I feel, for most people, to be measured, unless you're already doing something you love. So measuring it every day, on giving yourself a target, and you set the targets. It doesn't have to be huge. It can be, you know, I have someone right now I'm coaching who started on 3,000 steps a day. Now, you know, you might be full of real fit person and doing lots of exercise and think 3,000 steps a day, you know, that's hardly moving. But for this person, it's perfect, and they set their own goal. So maybe in a week or two that'll move to 3,500, or who knows. But it's the consistency, and that's really important. Okay, so much useless self-image, self-belief, or self-talk. I remember reading a book many years ago by probably the author with the best name I've ever heard, Shad Helmstetter. He wrote a book, many books about self-talk, and this one was called "What Do You Say When You Talk to Yourself?" And it's, as Jeannie talked about, the positive attitude that we can build in groups. Well, it starts with ourselves. I believe our conversations that we have with ourselves is so important. So remember that when you're making this change, that absolutely nobody, including the 4 of us here, got it right, 100% right the first time. We made many mistakes. I can certainly say for myself along the way. Frank reminded me a couple of weeks ago that it was 5 years for me to really get my diet buttoned down. It was a 5-year experience of improvement and understanding. And so don't beat yourself up if you're going to make a change and you don't get it right the first time. It's highly unlikely to happen. But the key is you get up one more time, then you get knocked over. So every time you fail, you just get back up again. The C is for cooking. I've ran away from this for a while. It was one of the things I took a while to learn, because I thought things like, it's too hard, it takes too much time, it's too expensive. None of those things are true. And so the advice I would give there, and what I went through myself, is find one breakfast, one lunch, one dinner, one snack, and repeat it until you can cook it perfectly. And then find another breakfast, another dinner, another lunch that you can also do the same with. And I found when I got 6 or 7 meals, I'm done. Now I realize that's not good enough for a lot of people as well, and they need a little bit more variety. But certainly I've found it so easy and so little time, and actually less expensive than eating the way I was before. Finally, H is habit. You know, we have to realize that the food that we take in is a drug. We become addicted to it over time, certainly on purpose sometimes, from some of the products, which, they have a bliss point in there with the amount of salt and sugar that they want us to be eating, because it sets off these chemicals in our brain and in our gut, which then govern the way we act and what we eat. So I would say they can be broken, habits, of course, but it does take work. I think I read successful people who give up smoking take on average of 11 attempts to be successful in giving up. And I've heard it's even more in drug addiction and maybe alcohol addiction. So again, don't give up. And one of the things I would suggest is getting a coach. Get someone who's gone through those steps before you and can help you shortcut this. Because the longer it goes on, if you're talking about 11 times, when you've fallen over 8 times, it's harder to get up the 9th time than it is the 3rd time. So the shorter that process can be, I feel that the more chance of success that we'll all have. So that's my acronym of so much, the SAD diet, the opinion of others, movement, useless self-talk, cooking, and habit.
How brilliant. I love that acronym so much. And I think you're right. It is, your health is worth working for, because we're not living longer, we're dying slower.
And I live in Florida. What's this thing called snow? You mentioned something called snow. To me, I like that idea, and I always replace the concept of exercise with activity. I feel the same way as you do, because I think it's just about getting people to do something that they enjoy doing. I mean, I can tell them to go to the gym, and they'll say, the doctor told me to go to the gym. They go to the gym, in 2 days, it's, I hate the gym, and then they stop their whole program. So find something you really enjoy doing, and do that 3, 4, or 5 times a week at some moderate, consistent level. And it has such a tremendous impact, because we're animals that are truly designed to move, and everyone needs to do that, but just find something that you really enjoy. And have patience with the process of change, too, that you've mentioned, because as you said, the choices that people are making now before they start new ones have had a long time to kind of weave their way into their behavioral tapestry. If you look at this as a tapestry in the brain and nervous system. So now when you make a new choice, it has to be given an opportunity to weave its way into that picture. And so there will be a little time frame, there will be a little time factor, and they need to be very self-loving and patient to some degree as those choices become etched into the fabric of their new tapestry. And I think if they have that patience, that self-love, and they embrace the things that you said, the opportunity for success is significantly greater. So that was great. Thank you.
My pleasure. If you ever come here, Frank, I'll show you the white stuff and teach you to ski.
I'm ready to go.
I
want to go cross-country skiing. That's what I want to do.
It's so awesome.
That's one of my favorite things.
Yeah, great.
I just want to say thank you very much, Gareth. That makes a lot of sense. And I think your point about people getting a coach is so important. You're quite right. It is very difficult for people, and getting up again, getting back on that wagon is really, really tough for people, especially if they've fallen off several times, because the message that we're giving to the brain is, oh my goodness, by the 8th time it's, this is really actually tough, and why should I bother even trying, because I've fallen off so many times before. So having a cheerleader, a coach, is so important. The other difficulty I think that people find is that when people make positive changes in their lives, a lot of the time that is very, very challenging for their friends and family who may live the same sort of unsupportive lifestyle. So, you're not just dealing with the difficulty that the person faces in making those changes for themselves, but also the lack of support and negativity that they may be getting from others. So I think that's a very important thing. So when you've got a cheerleader in your corner or a coach, it really makes all the difference. And I know myself, just like you, Gareth, my trajectory when I switched to being plant-based was not a straight line either. I fell off the wagon several times because I thought, gosh, this is great. I can eat like a normal person now because my symptoms had all completely gone. And I thought, that's it, I'm fixed. But of course, that's not the truth of the matter. And the truth of the matter is that an actual healthy lifestyle is what we are advocating here. And anything else that is supposed to be normal is dramatically far removed from normality.
I don't know about you, but my family, I'm the health nut, the health freak in the family. And I just used to think, well, what are you, sickness freaks? If I'm a health freak, are you a sickness freak? What is so strange about wanting to be healthy? But you're right, it does challenge people's beliefs.
Well, thank you, Gareth. You're always amazing. And let's move on to Dr. Frank Sabatino, who's going to talk about the impact of lifestyle choices in the immune system. Take it away, Frank.
Yeah, currently, as everybody knows, we've been dealing with this infection. And you hear a lot of talk about the immune system, but this is such a black box for people. And I think very few realize the incredible power and how fluid and plastic and changeable this system is, and how routine lifestyle choices create these effects. You know, we have in cells of the body, like the spleen and the thymus gland and our bone marrow, the marrow of our bones, we're producing a population of white blood cells on a regular basis that have the ability to help us deal with mechanical injury, tissue injury to the body, and invasion and infection. So these cells are capable of recognizing everything that is us and everything that is not us, what I like to call self and non-self. And as they process this damage to the body, or as they process the invasion that comes in, not only are they able to recognize what's not us, not are they only able to devour those organisms that come in that don't really belong in a helpful way in our bodies. Not only are they able to clean up the damaged cells that are affected by invasion, infection, and injury, but they're able to pass that information to several different phases and cycles of that immune system, so that now we can remember those events, put them in the memory like software into the hard drive of the immune system, so that we can react in a future way, in a very healthy, dynamic way when we're invaded or attacked again. So we have an inborn immune system called the innate, and then that's something we're born with. But then as we encounter the things in the environment, we are able to adapt to those. But I love this idea that we've had these layers of synergy and connection, where we're recognizing what's not us, we're protecting the body against that and also tissue injury, but then we're even creating cells that memorize that experience, so that in the future, we're able to mount a response in a much easier way, whether it's with inflammation, etc. The important part about that is, though, what people don't realize, is that there are many lifestyle factors that affect the quality and activity of that very protective immune system. And I'm going to talk about those just briefly in the sense of nutrition, activity, and even stress response care. When we talk about eating in a plant-based manner, we find that if you look at the dietary excesses that are part of the SAD diet that Gareth was talking about, we find that many of the problems we experience are not just because of deficiencies, but because of the excesses of animal protein, processed oils, refined sugars. All of those foods create an unbelievable foundation of ongoing inflammation, ongoing oxidation, meaning a lot of free radicals that damage cells and tissues and promote aging. You're producing things like TMAO from bacteria in the body that create damage to blood vessels, stiffening blood vessels, cutting off oxygen to the brain and the heart. So when you're eating in a plant-based manner, you're creating an ongoing state of inflammation and oxidation that is overtaxing that immune system, that is laying the groundwork for keeping a level of activity, so that now if we do get invaded, for example, by a virus, and the body now has to mount an ongoing inflammatory response, it has to release chemical messengers called cytokines that control that inflammatory process or help regulate it. It has to be able to create antibodies. If you're already keeping a major level of inflammation because of those foods you're eating, you're going to have an exaggeration of those responses. So, for example, we've seen with this COVID-19 where people, when those viruses attach to lung tissue and you start getting the normal fever and inflammation that the immune system creates, if you already have an ongoing level of high inflammatory change from these kind of dietary foods that people are eating, when the inflammatory process of the immune system kicks in, it may exaggerate that process to the point where tissue is no longer being helped by that inflammation, but can even be further damaged. So keeping a lower level of inflammatory change, inflammation, by eating in more of a plant-based manner dramatically keeps a nice, more level function for that immune system. It's not overtaxing and exaggerating these responses that could be, in fact, helpful. I think we can appreciate that if you have fever or inflammation, These are natural, helpful processes of the body. That's how the body gets rid of infection. That's how the body heals tissue damage. But if these things go unchecked, they can kind of create more problems than they're worth. So eating in the very compromised way with a lot of animal and dairy and processed foods. For example, when you're eating processed foods, for example, a classic example is that a lot of fried processed foods will create what we call an increase in transformed fats, trans fats. People don't realize that fats make up a big part of the envelope of all cells, kind of the picket fence of the cell that allows things to enter like food and allows waste to leave. But those fats in that membrane, that fence of the cell, are usually in a very unsaturated form, very liquidy, so things can kind of glide and slide and enter those cells easily. When fats are transformed because of the frying process, the high heat cooking, the refining of those foods, and you start putting those altered fats in the membrane, it's no longer an easy transition of things moving through the cells, and now those cells will begin to allow things to enter that they normally would block. So we find that as trans fats go up, there's more inflammation and more tendency for bacterial and viral infection. So those foods will now create a situation that makes us more compromised. So think about now, if you got infected by a coronavirus and your diet was loaded with saturated animal products and trans fats, you are creating a nutritional environment that supports infection, and you're actually making it significantly worse. The other beautiful part is we know that when you eat the high fiber plant-based foods that we're talking about, and we mentioned this before, it creates a diversity of organisms in our gut, in this gut microbiota that we have, which are trillions of organisms that play a major role in health and well-being. We find now that the more diverse plant foods we eat, the more diverse that kind of environment is, and they're able to produce the little acids and short-chain fatty acids that create a healthy gut lining. But we also know that the gut microbiota will take a class of compounds, phenols, that we produce that plants, fruits, and vegetables provide. So, for example, the things that are in soy protein, the things that are in nuts and berries, the tannins, the things that are in turmeric, like curcuminoids. The gut microbiota will transform those in a way that promotes an increase in the white cells, killer cells, B cells, that support immune function. So we find that the gut microbiota plays a major role in antiviral protection by being able to transform the nutrients in plant-based food. So think about this, when you're eating in a plant-based manner, not only are you giving the body the best combination of nutrients and foods to support the body at large, but you're promoting the greatest health for the bacteria that are maintaining the integrity of the gut and actually allowing us to mount an even healthier antiviral and healthy immune response. And unfortunately, when you're eating a lot of those animal products, you're also causing a damage to that lining that opens the gut and allows more toxic material to enter, and even changing the organisms in the gut into more what we call pathogens that are going to provide damage to the system. So again, this plant-based eating plan is so powerful for providing the nutrients we need, but also supporting other aspects of the body that will, again, remarkably affect the way the gut itself can play a major role in helping us fight infection. It's a remarkable concept. And tied into that, a classic nutrient that's tied into that is something like vitamin D. One of the big problems with social distancing and people cloistering at home, in my opinion, is they were not getting adequate sun exposure, for example. We know that when sunlight hits the skin, it's converted into a form of vitamin D, vitamin D3, that then gets activated through the liver and kidney. What people didn't really know is that the primary cells of our immune system also have receptors directly for vitamin D. So when you're exposed to sunlight, that sunlight's coming right into those immune cells and activating all the cells of your immune system that fight viral and bacterial infection. So vitamin D plays a major role in, if you will, balancing the innate and the adaptive immune system. And on the mucus lining, the barriers of the body, you have a whole series of proteins that are called defense proteins. These defense proteins in the mucus lining of your nose and your mouth and your lungs and your digestive tract, they produce defense proteins that will literally damage viruses before they even attach to cells. They will make cells a little bit stiffer and less permeable so things can't enter. Because remember, when you're infected by a virus, the virus has to attach to a cell, it has to enter a cell, it has to hijack your genetic machinery to produce itself because they can't produce by themselves. They need our genetic machinery to work. So all of these defense proteins that are lining all of the barriers that protect us in this world are producing proteins that will literally block the virus from entering cells, kill the virus before it does, and also prevent it from fostering more infection in the body. As it turns out, vitamin D, fiber in our food, and the gut microbiota that's produced when we eat plants all dramatically increase those host defense proteins. And people are not aware of how powerful that input is for balancing the function of the immune system. So vitamin D, to me, plays a major role. And if you're living in climates where you can't get sun, we're recommending that you take at least about 2,000 international units of vitamin D3 a day, because it is so powerful in the response. And we also know that vitamin D at those levels, which is the equivalent, again, of about 10 minutes, 10 to 15 minutes of sun exposure, soft sun exposure on a daily basis. But if you can't get it, to me, you've got to take that kind of supplementation. We also know that that level of vitamin D has a huge impact on reducing your upper respiratory tract infections. In this current climate with coronavirus, one of the biggest corollaries or the biggest consequences of the infection is people being hospitalized because of respiratory involvement. And so the bottom line is the vitamin D is helpful. And the other thing that really is helpful, and Gareth mentioned it, is ongoing physical activity. We now have a huge evidence base to show that low impact, moderate intense activity, 30 to 40 minutes, at a level of function that's at the lowest end of heart rate. So at a point where you're almost having a difficult time breathing, you're just pushing the body to that point, will dramatically enhance the expression of all of the helper cells in the immune system, T helper cells, T killer cells, B cells for antibody production. So simple activity dramatically enhances the presence of those cells. And we also know that exercise itself at that level will modify upper respiratory tract infections. And it's interesting. The evidence suggests that very high intensity activity for much longer periods of time actually have a reverse effect, where it's actually compromising some of that immunity. So the data suggests that working and doing activity in a more moderate, consistent way has a significant impact on the beneficial outcome of that immune system. And finally, when we look at chronic stress over time, we know that the stress system, the fight or flight system of the body, is designed to help us deal with trauma and challenge. But when we are overreacting, when that stress becomes more chronic, we have a chronic cortisol release that will actually suppress all of the functional cells of both the innate and the adaptive immune system. So borrowing a phrase from Jayney, I like her phrase of stress response management, managing that on some level with present time mindful activity like meditation, taking some time each day to get involved with stepping back from the chatter of our lives, reframing the events of our lives so that they're not causing us to overreact with this chronic stressful situation. But make no mistake that the stress itself has a big impact on compromising that immune outcome. So, we've talked about this idea of epigenetics, where outside influences can affect the gene pool. Well, I've kind of coined this phrase of epi-immunogenics, because we now know that this immune system, in how it functions and how it ages, is not something that just has one straight line. It is being molded and framed, and it is being shifted and made very plastic and flexible by all of these lifestyle choices that we make. And people need to understand the power that they have within them, that this immune system is so incredible on so many levels, but what we're eating and how we're moving and how we're dealing with the stressful events of our lives are having a huge impact on molding and expressing that immune system at its greatest potential and possibility. And so what we do daily, we need to understand that we have that capability to create an active immune system and a dynamic immune system that is far beyond what most people are telling us about.
I have a question for you, Dr. Frank. Let's say you decide today's the day I'm going to make the changes. How soon can a person, if they jump into a whole food plant-based diet, how soon can people start to see changes in their body?
Well, let's take the morbid conditions that affected this virus, for example. We've talked about the fact we know that when people were infected with coronavirus, the elder and more morbid population was the population that was dying and being affected. So people that had obesity. For example, people that are obese were 6 times more likely to be hospitalized with coronavirus infection than people that are not. And that's usually a body mass index of above 28, 29. As it turns out, the average body mass index in the United States is about 29. So we have a population in America that's already, prone to that. So obesity, high blood pressure, cancer. As it turns out, when you start making these lifestyle choices of just eating plant-based, you already will see a drop in blood pressure in a couple of days. You'll see body weight and body fat loss in a very short period of time. You'll see blood sugar levels drop within a week. So we see changes within the space of a small number of weeks to months, already eliminating these morbid, comorbid conditions that compromise how we act and respond in any viral infectious state or pandemic. So this is the beautiful thing. Because not only does the lifestyle that we've mentioned enhance the immune function, but it also reverses and eliminates all of the comorbid conditions that make the infection significantly worse. So you got to go plant-based, y'all. That's just the way it is. And you've got to get into some regular physical activity and understand the power of sunlight and sunshine and fresh air and stress response management, and understand that that's all within your reach. And when you listen to these talking heads that are constantly informing you about the devastation of your immune system with these viruses, they're not addressing those epi-immune effects or those epi-immune conditions that are molding that immune system to be what you want it to be.
Frank, great stuff. I love listening to you when you talk about health. I've listened to one of your videos somewhere where you talked about vitamin D and sunlight, and saying I think it was 10 to 20 minutes a week is
10 minutes a day.
A day,
at least
sorry,
4 or
yeah.
5 times a week.
Well, we're just coming into, I think tomorrow or the next day is the first day of the midnight sun here. So we'll have 24-hour sun for 4 months. But of course we have the opposite then in a few months' time, with almost 4 months of darkness. So, how important is it? It's for people to be taking a supplement.
It's very important. My opinion is they should be taking at least that 2,000 to 3,000 IUs of vitamin D a day, vitamin D3. Okay. I would absolutely recommend it. And Jayney and I have talked about this. We did that interview on sunshine and sunlight. And if you're living in Northern Europe and those parts of the world, and you're talking about situations like you just described, absolutely. I would definitely recommend it as a supplementation. Because understand, vitamin D is not just a vitamin. It works like a hormone in the human body. Vitamin D can activate over 1,000 genes. About 5% of our entire gene pool is activated by vitamin D. This is one of the great biological requirements of life: sunlight, sun exposure. And so, we bypass these simple things because they sound too simple. Mm-hmm. But when you really look at the impact of something as simple as sunlight exposure on every aspect of the body, it's mind-blowing. It's just mind-blowing.
Well, thank you so much, all of you guys. As usual, you're all brilliant and amazing. I can't say enough. But thank you for joining us today. If you have any questions you'd like us to dive into, you can message us through Facebook, social media, or our website. And coming soon will be the healthchangers.net website. So coming soon. So as soon as I get time to build it. But your health is so worth working for. Make every bite, make every action count. And if you need help, we're here. All of us here can help you on your journey. So have an absolutely fantastic day.